Okay, ready to get started? So before you get started with this Bootstrap tutorial, I would recommend that you review the previous Bootstrap tutorial that covers the history of Bootstrap, components, how to set it up, and so on. After you've done that, um, move on to this tutorial. And in this tutorial, we're going to cover some basic elements and how to do a basic implementation of Bootstrap 4. You'll see that we have the Jumbotron at the top. We have a menu bar here. We have an image and an area here that's kind of an about me area. We have a developing applications, kind of a summary area or article area. Then we have another area down below where we'll showcase some of our apps or some of our work. And then we have a closing footer. This is essentially what we'll go through in this tutorial and create. It's pretty easy to implement, and we've taken it from this tutorial from W3 Schools, which is really awesome. It's their basic template. All of their resources are really fantastic for this. This is what their tutorial looks like. And so we're just gonna kind of spice it up a little bit and add some other components to it. But for the most part, this does a really nice job of going through it and giving you the code for this tutorial. So this is a foundation of what we're working on. All right, let's dive in and start with our first example. So we're going to start with part one of this, and for that we're just going to implement Bootstrap. So you'll see here that by implementing Bootstrap, we've put the different scripts connected to the CDN, and we've also put the style sheet connected to the Bootstrap CDN. Usually you're going to want to have your scripts at the bottom of the body of your page, although based on the tutorials that I was looking through and reviewing, it seems like they're putting most of the scripts up here at the top. When you start running a page and you want it to run at a higher speed for its opening load time, in that case you really want to try to have these scripts towards the bottom because they take a little bit longer to load, and aesthetically they're not going to show. They're more an interactive component in most use cases. But for now, we're just going to put it at the top and link these CDNs. And then we have a traditional opening of the page. After that, we're playing with a container fluid. So we're going to use a container fluid instead of just a container or a fixed container. And here we are just putting in some basic stuff, as we can see next to this, which is an H1 tag, a paragraph tag, and then closing the div. So we decided to, between the fixed width layout and a fluid width layout, and over here you could click on this resource for Get Bootstrap and their overview, and they talk about the different containers and the fixed width and the fluid width. Fluid width is a more kind of contemporary implementation, which it goes all the way across the screen, while fixed width plays more with the breakpoints of media queries. And here's the W3 Schools version of that as well, showing you the different types of containers you can choose. If you really want to dig in, fixed width is a classic website design layout. With a fixed width, it will look like the entire screen page. The entire screen is a page, and when it hits the max width breakpoints, it'll convert to a new page. It often has a background image associated with it. Fluid will take up the entire screen the entire time. So when you make it smaller, it's still going to take up the entire screen. And then here's a great Medium article that covers this in much more depth and detail, which I really recommend reading. They're covering what is the difference between fixed width, fluid, adaptive, and responsive layouts. So, and why should I care? And they do a really nice job of showing a visual of how fluid closes rather than fixed, which you see that it actually cuts off parts of the page, and therefore you have to have a breakpoint or media query recreate the page. Well, the fluid width is going to make it smaller. And this is something that we talk about over and over again, this constant desire to try to find the best way to make responsive websites. That's the lineage through the beginning of web design in general. Okay, so we created our first and connected our Bootstrap page to get started. Okay, so for this part, what we're going to do is we're going to implement the Jumbotron and throw in a button with that. So we're going to start off by using the Jumbotron feature of Bootstrap, which we will get from here. So we'll go over to components. And one of the amazing things about Bootstrap is they really just do so much of the work for you. It's an amazing CSS framework for that. And it's used by so many different people. So it's really refined and really impressive, the code base and code set that you get to use. And so here's different versions of Jumbotrons. It looks like we're using this one right here, which is very similar to the code that we're getting here. And you can see that we're going to go with the fluid Jumbotron right here with the fluid width. We've decided between the fixed width and the fluid width, and we went with the fluid width, and we just talked about that. Then we moved down and we opened up our Jumbotron class, and then we've created a container inside that class, and then we use the h1 class of display4. So h1 is a default size, and Bootstrap has their own default sizes that they have set while still using that same character. So if we go over here, we can look at the topography, and here's a breakdown of the different sizes for Bootstrap. So here's a breakdown of the default sizes for H1 through H6. You can see that it's 40 pixels, and they play around with REMs, which are responsive positioning for fonts and units. You could use it for much more than just font sizes, but it's really powerful for responsive positioning. But so essentially the 2.5 REMs equal 40 pixels. And for H1, and then these are the different sizes that they have for H1. They also created this display property, which also has specified sizes that are already implemented. And you could look through here and check out some of the other style guides for their font selections and typography. So in this case, we're using display4 from the size that we just saw from the H1 class, and we're saying wide herbs apps. So you could check this link for the breakdown of that. Then we're going to use a paragraph class called lead, and we're going to put in this information. And then we're going to use a horizontal rule, and we're going to use this margin setting that Bootstrap also has. Let's check out this really cool margin setting that they have. So here's a different spacing that they have. So instead of writing out margin top, margin bottom, padding top, padding bottom, all you have to do is do an M and then T for top, or B for bottom. Or in this case, what we're using is MY, which is for top and bottom. MX would be for left and right, or PX or PY. And then there's a ton of other abbreviations that you can use as well. It's important that you know some of the basic foundations of margin and padding and things like that before you jump into Bootstrap, so it doesn't get too confusing of all these abbreviations and shorter kind of short code that they're using. Then after that, we go in and we have a paragraph chat with us. We have the other class of lead, and then we put in this button class. And once again, Bootstrap provides us with listing of different buttons that we can use, and we've chosen dark. So if you go over here and you can see this is the button class that we chose, button dark. So this is their preset for this dark color button. And this is just another example that's from W3 Schools. Same information though. And so after we put in that code, we get this opening Jumbotron that's got the ye old button and the text that we were referring to before. All right, let's jump into the next example. So for this example, we're going to create a menu bar, just a white menu bar. We're going to put an image into that menu bar here. So we can now pass through our Jumbotron, And now we're going to add a nav bar with Bootstrap components over here. And once again, they build out tons of different navigation bars that we could use, centered bars, colored bars, all sorts of different ones. We're going to end up using this one with an image or a logo and add that to our page here. So let's check that out. So if we go over here, we can see that we have the nav class, the nav bar, expanded small, and our background's white currently, and the nav bar is light colored. Over here, this is pretty typical, where we once again have the nav bar brand, which is attached, meaning that it's going to get the image or branding or logo. We're using a hashtag because we don't want to have to click away, but we can always put in our link later. And then we're going to put in our image of mustache.png, which is located in our image folder right over here. So it's going to connect to that image folder. This is our alt tag. This is a current width size that we're setting for it. And then down here are just your typical links from an unordered list. And you have the home link, the about link, and the product link. And from that, we get this cool nav bar at the top with our mustache image in there and the rest of the menu bar there. So let's move on to the next part. We're going to actually spice up the nav bar a little bit, and we're going to kind of give it a little bit different look. We're going to change the background. We actually updated the image. We changed the color ourselves in Photoshop, Illustrator, Sketch, or Figma, or whatever you want to use to do that. We made the image smaller as well, so we don't have to do a setting size for that. And then we are going to move our links over to the right-hand side, and we're going to use a toggle so that when we go to the mobile version, we get the hamburger bar and we can click to close that. And once again, the Bootstrap is just going to give us those components to work with. And we're just playing with the nav bar expand in this case for using that. We're going with static top. So if we look at different positioning styles, static is just the default setting of our positioning. There's also relative, absolute, fixed, and sticky as those different elements. So you could go through and look at those options there. Sticky kind of staying in the same place all the time. And then we go over here, we have our container. We've changed it to navbar dark, navbar static. That changed the color. Or I'm sorry, background dark and navbar dark. We have our branding just like we saw before. We updated our image to this white image and made our image a lot smaller so we didn't have to do a setting size. And then we use this toggler. And so this is one of the cool things. Without even knowing any JavaScript, we get to have events on our web page based on the Bootstrap framework. And if we go through and we look at the toggler, the toggle feature is going to change when the event of the page changes, and therefore it's going to change the setting of our menu bar to open up this to make this hamburger bar appear. So we're going to add that toggle navigation. So now that we're all set up with our toggle navigation, we can go in and we can look at the toggle code where it's going to the class of toggler type button, and we can see this part where it says area controls. The area controls is a relationship attribute that tells the association of the interactive relationship. So in this case, the area controls is related to navbar responsive. And then when it's false, it's going to be expanded. And then the area label is toggle navigation. Then when we scroll down, we'll also see SR only, and that stands for screen reader only. After that, we just have the regular list items and things like that. Lastly, one other thing you could see is this is going to say current, and then we're making the home active in active color. And for that, it's going to be white, while the other colors are going to be more subdued and a little bit darker shade. Okay, next section we're going to add is the About Me section. We're going to put in an image, some text under that. We're going to center everything. And then we're also going to create this other area where we're going to have a title and we could put in some information about our products, who we are, and whatever else we'd like to talk about. You can see in our image folder, we now have a picture of Wyatt Earp, and we still have the image for our logo in our menu bar at the top. So if we scroll down now, what we're going to get into setting up the grids. So here we now are setting up a container underneath the navigation over here. We're going to set up a container, margin top 30 pixels to give us some spacing between the top of our container and the menu bar. Then we're going to go to column small 4. So the wide Earp side is going to be 4 columns wide, and the other side is going to be 8 columns wide. So we could see that we set this next div class at small 8. We're also doing MX Auto and Text Center. So when you want to align an image, there's multiple different ways to do it, but one of them is just to say Text Center. Yes, it will make your text center, but it'll also make your images center as well. So that's what we're doing here. And then we're margin aligning the coordinates over here at auto. Outside of that, we're putting a setting to the images, and then we're throwing in some Bacon Lorem Ipsum in there. If you guys would like to use that. And so then down below that, we have a column small 8. We have a heading tag of developing applications, and we have a H5 a little bit smaller. And then we're going to add in some background color. So we're going to create a div class called background color. And we're going to show how to do that here. You can connect to external style sheets is how we usually would do it, by creating a custom style sheet for Bootstrap. But we're just going to change one small thing here just to kind of add some exposure to using CSS within your page. And so we have this background color here that's going to go around our text right here, and we'll round out the colors. So if we go back to the top, we can see that we put in a style tag here in the head of our page. We are connecting that to the div class of background color. We add in a border radius of 25 pixels, some background color, and some padding for that just straight color that we have here for this section. At the end, we close it with an HR tag. And then once again, we play around with the margin style, and we give that a margin style of 4. Okay, so now let's move on to the next part. Almost finished. So in the next part here, we have the about, we have the developing applications, we have our menu bar, we have our top Jumbotron, and now we're going to throw in these icons with a heading tag at the top. All right. So here's our horizontal rule from before. That's that divider between these two sections. Then we'll create another container with the images of the apps that we have for sale. We'll add the image fluid class and some effects to our images as well that we can check out. But first, let's just check out the container. So we created another container. We did another margin top of 20 pixels. We created a row. And then the first one, we went with column small 12, MX Auto and Text Center, and then margin bottom 5. And here we're just going to say hurry and round up some of our Wild West apps. I think we need of in there. Some of our Wild West apps. So we'll update that. And that's just going to create a title at the top of our page. Then after that, we're going to do a series of column small 3 with the MX Auto, the Text Center, and then the margin bottom 4. Once again, check out the abbreviations for margin and padding and things like that that were showed earlier. and go over those so that that's not confusing for you. And so each of these are set up into 3 columns apiece, and then we're just going to throw in an image into each of those buckets that we created for these containers. And then here's our image right here. So you could throw in just a regular image, and the source image is going to go to cowtipping.png. And if we go to our image folder, we can now see that we've populated with a bunch of these little images here for our applications that are about the same size. So we have the image for cow tipping, we have the image for raging bulls, talking cowboy, and farm ninja. So these are the different apps that we're going to be selling on our site, or affiliate marketing, or so on. And then over here, we're going to actually be playing with an image class called image fluid. And so if we go to this link over here for Bootstrap images, once again, we're just giving some exposure to some of the different component features, not all of them, but just enough so that we can build something of substance. There's a ton more other things that you can play around with on your own. And so once you get comfortable playing with this, hopefully you can start creating some modifications as well. We're going to play around with this circle feature here. This one's a rounded corner. We're going to do the circle and the thumbnail. So over here we have class rounded circle, and then we have class image thumbnail. And if you look at our page, we put an image thumbnail over here and an image rounded circle around Farm Ninja. So if we go to Farm Ninja over here, we could see that we put an image class rounded circle. We also have this image fluid on here, which I believe if we scroll down, we could see responsive images. And so images come in all sizes, so do screens. Responsive images automatically adjust to fit the size of the screen. Create responsive images by adding image fluid class to the IMG tag. The image will then scale nicely to the parent element. So we have image class image fluid, and then we're going to put that rounded circle class to make this Farm Ninja both responsive and a rounded circle. And then we do the same thing over here with the Raging Bulls. We have image thumbnail and image fluid, and then for all the others we just added image fluid so that they're responsive, and that gave us our result of our apps down below here in all these different containers, these 3-column containers, and also with the different effects. One other thing that we did was, when we were putting these together, they were too tightly packed in the mobile version. So we also did a margin bottom 4 to give a little bit of space from one app to the other. So that's something you want to be cognizant as well, is just keeping your spacing aligned well. As long as you keep that spacing aligned well, choose complementary colors, complementary fonts, and things like that, you're going to get a pretty decent looking site. Now this one could use a little bit more spice, but for the most part it's looking pretty decent. Last one, we're going to add this footer at the bottom to close up shop here, and we're actually going to just use another Jumbotron in order to do that. So let's check out that code. So now if we scroll down, we'll use another Jumbotron, text center, style margin bottom 0, and then we'll just put in a paragraph tag in here, a break, and then we'll use a link with an email, just an HTML email tag in there that actually will send emails or connect to somebody's email client if they want to send you an email. Then we're going to close that, and then we are going to close our body. And then we are done. It looks like we have a footer in here, which, if we check out their example, wondering if that's where we get it from. Oh, I guess they just put in footer where it says footer. I think we should probably take that out. So let's take that out, which is just an HTML class, but we didn't put footer anywhere else. If we wanted to do footer, we would do it more like this. We have our footer here, and then we would close our footer like that. And then we would be going through and putting all of our other HTML5 elements as well. All right, so that is our page that we have created. It is complete and seems to be functioning quite well. And I look forward to see what you guys can create for this. And when we go to the mobile version, this is what it looks like here.